So last 2 days on his podcast, Ben Shapiro has talked about this 3D printing guns controversy, and I think he's missing the point. So I'll go through what he has to say about it. I'll summarize it afterward, and then I'll kind of talk about the issues that I have with his arguments, basically.
To today's news, the President of the United States, we're speaking about gun rights, the President of the United States has now come out with a bizarre tweet in which he attacks 3D gun printing. Now, listen, the President does a lot of very good things on policy, and then he says a lot of stuff on Twitter. As I've said before, the President is fond of the saying of the things. Well, the President decided to go on Twitter and sound off about 3D gun printing this morning based on essentially no knowledge of 3D gun printing, and so here's what he tweeted out. I am looking into 3D plastic guns being sold to the public. Already spoke to the NRA. Doesn't seem to make much sense. That's not what 3D gun printing is. Okay, like that's seriously, like if you think that 3D gun printing is John Malkovich in the Line of Fire making plastic guns in his basement, that's not what 3D gun printing actually is. Stephen Gutowski of the Washington Free Beacon points out that it is easy and legal to find gun blueprints online, and it should be, because otherwise you have to crack down on the internet. You have to crack down on people's use of the internet to put out blueprints for guns. That's silly, it's ineffective, it doesn't work. And Gutowski also points out the vast majority of 3D printed gun designs are not undetectable to metal detectors because that's actually illegal. It's actually illegal. The ban on the creation of such weapons was extended to 2023 under the Undetectable Firearms Act, so you're not allowed to actually manufacture a plastic gun that can move through a metal detector. That is illegal under federal law. Also, 3D printed guns are made of metal. Okay, they're actually made of metal, the vast majority of them. Okay, it's just a 3D printer that uses metal in order to carve out the parts, and the vast majority of people who are using gun blueprints online to build their guns are buying the constituent parts from gun manufacturers in the first place. It's not like they're sitting around and spending $100,000 on a 3D printer, which is what a good 3D printer costs. Why in the world would you go and get all the materials for a 3D printer to make an AR-15 in your basement? It'll cost you 150 grand, or you could just go on down to your local gun dealer and buy one for 1,500 bucks. Why exactly would you do any of that? The media put out all this.
All right, I'll stop it there because then he goes into how the media is making it into a different deal and all this crap. But when he says it would cost you $150,000 to make a gun in your basement or whatever, that's just not true. If you buy a commercial industrial metal 3D printer, then yes, but that's not what the debate or the controversy is about. He's trying to make it about like metal 3D printers, which are a new technology, first of all, so obviously they're going to be expensive. 3D printers in general are fairly expensive, but they've come down a lot in the last few years, like any technology would, or any new technology would. Let's just listen to what he has to say today, or had to say today, about the 3D gun printing issue again, because we're obviously still talking about this. It's a big issue.
Of pulling the trigger. There is a crazy thing that is happening right now where a bunch of folks on the left are now attempting to ban 3D gun printing. We talked a little bit yesterday about the fact that folks in the media do not know what in the hell they are talking about when they talk about printing of 3D guns. They really think that I'm going to take my HP LaserJet and print out a gun in my house right now. Like they really think that that's a thing I can do, that I can just go into my library and I can print out a gun from my normal printer. Because they...
Of all people to present a straw man, I would expect it not to be Ben Shapiro, but this is like the most obvious blatant straw man I've ever seen in my life. Just saying. This is stupid.
They hear printing and this is what they think. That's not how it works. An actual 3D printing machine costs upward of $8,000 all the way up to $100,000.
No, it doesn't. That's false. I mean, an $8,000 for minimum for a 3D printer? No. No. Now, he's going to say, well, I'm talking about metal 3D printers. And I'm saying that doesn't matter. You can print you can print metal, essentially, by taking a regular printed piece in PLA and then just casting it. Like this. Like this piece right here was turned into this piece right here. That's certainly enough definition to make a gun part. Certainly you could make a lower receiver with that kind of with that kind of quality. You can definitely make a lower receiver that functions.
That's not how it works. An actual 3D printing machine costs upward of $8,000 all the way up to $100,000. Nobody is sitting in their basement actually printing out fully plastic guns. That is illegal. You are not allowed to manufacture guns that are not detectable.
I don't know how he is so completely missing the mark on all of these points. No, a 3D printer does not cost $8,000 at minimum. It costs like $200 at minimum. No, people aren't making fully plastic guns that are undetectable. Of course not, because they're buying the firing pin, because you need something to actually make it shoot. You need a little piece of metal on the firing pin. That's about it, though. So my intention with this is not to bash Ben at all. I actually accidentally left my bookmarks up in the last couple clips there, and you'll see that Daily Wire and his SoundCloud are two of my bookmarks. I listen to him every day. I really like his opinions. I don't agree with all of them, or maybe even most of them, but to hear such a completely uninformed opinion coming from somebody who is stating it as if it was fact, as if this is reality, is shocking, to say the least, from somebody that I like. This is one of the most well-respected voices from young conservatives, if not from young conservatives specifically. He's probably the most popular and well-respected voice there is, and he is literally just saying falsehoods. Like, this is just wrong. What he is saying, it doesn't cost $8,000 for a 3D printer. That's just wrong. And saying it one day, that's fine, because 5 years ago or so, it kind of did cost that much to 3D print with decent quality. When it was, I mean, maybe not 5, but 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, like when 3D printing was first started to take off, yeah, it did cost that much. But that was when it was a really new technology, and it's taken off a lot. It's come down a lot in price from then. And just the fact that he hasn't done a 30-second Google search is kind of inexcusable for somebody in his position. I mean, every day he talks about how he is the most conservative voice, or the most popular conservative podcast. And to know that, and to know that he's saying just completely wrong thing, like, this is just wrong. This is not true. Like, you can Google it and figure it out in 30 seconds. That's not true. That's troubling. What else has he said that I didn't even realize wasn't true? So I expect more of somebody that is sitting in a position like him. This is a big issue, and to brush it off as like being only a technology available to the super rich is just ridiculous. So, yeah. That's it.